Hello, and welcome to Deep In Pact, a proud member of the Duff Network, where we dive deep into Wildbow's most shortest work, 5 years on. Coming up next is Elliot Diebold.
And that was Ruben Morehouse.
And we are here for our penultimate episode, or tri-ultimate if you count the live stream. We'll be talking about Judgment 16.12, but a bit of an announcement before that.
Yeah, so we've been highlighting sections of the stream at the start of each episode. But today's one is, half segment highlight, half announcement, because we've sort of been lying about what one of them is, I guess. I don't know.
Tricking.
Lying or
it's been a
hiding.
trick.
Yes,
an innocent jape.
So the segment that has been put in the calendar as I think it was down as Word of God talk is going to be living up to its name, because Wildbow is going to be joining us for that one.
Yeah, we're really excited. I think it's Wildbow's first proper audio interview thing. He's coming on the stream to help support charity, and we'll be talking to him about his thoughts about Pact, how he's feeling about it these days, 5 years on, and all kinds of cool things. So we're really excited that he's agreed to come on, and hopefully you guys are excited to have us chat to him as well, I suppose.
Yeah. So we're lining up a bunch of questions, and it's going to be, I'm super excited for this, and hopefully people will come along to join in on the chat. Yeah,
to catch the man himself. We'll be kind of interviewing him. We'll be chit-chatting with him, and you can probably pop some questions in Twitch, and we'll kind of vet them and ask him if we think that they're good questions, and I'll probably steal credit, but Elliot probably won't.
No, yeah, I'll steal them. That's fine.
Oh, yeah, cool. So if you want to have your questions asked of Wildbow without attribution, then come join us for the Parahumans. Oh, sorry, not the Parahumans now. That's the part before.
No.
For the Word of God discussion.
Yeah. So, with that big announcement out of the way, should we dive into
let's dive into this
1612?
Second last chapter of sorts. Rose has just claimed her new throne, and she says to the group, hey, buy me some time so I can enjoy relaxing in this shiny new chair.
It's really funny how she sort of is like, buy me time, and Blake's just like, okay. Especially since he's not able to do much anymore. But I really like how this, when Rose asks of this, the thing Blake does is kind of survey the battlefield and give us the update on where everyone's at, and that was really necessary for me, because the second half of last chapter was completely dedicated to Blake and Rose, to the point where I didn't know where anyone was anymore.
Yes, totally.
So I really did need this update on where everyone except Green Eyes is.
Yeah, still no mention of her this chapter, right? Or Blake mentions her when he thinks, was that Green Eyes? No, she's too injured to be doing anything.
Yeah, his thought process goes from, oh no, she's too injured to be moving like that, just never back to the fact that she's really injured and he should be concerned about that. And I mean, it also sets the stage, like this observation of everyone for Blake's role this chapter, which is just as an observer. He's kind of beyond the point where he can really actually do much. He does one thing later in the chapter, and we'll get there.
And it takes him the whole chapter to build up to it.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like, this chapter is really Blake watching what he's helped happen.
Yeah, totally.
But him opening by just surveying everyone else kind of helps get us in that frame of mind, which I thought was really nice.
Yeah.
And Blake also lists all the others separately from the humans. I noticed, which was like a fun little, he's just separated himself from his own humanity. So I guess he's doubling down on that.
Well, yeah, and he's obviously more closely friendly with the remaining others than he is with the humans, right?
Well, no, that's the thing. The others that are left is like...
Well, yeah, sure. The Green Eyes and Evan aren't part of it. But I mean, in general, he's more aligned with others, I suppose.
I mean, yeah, but that's some boogeymen he doesn't even know in Buttsack, so that's not a good sign. If
true.
If that's where we're reading.
His closest friend at the moment.
Yeah, I don't want to say that about Blake. I still have hope for him. Not that he'll become a real human boy again, but that he could get some sort of happy ending. So I'm gonna assume he just did it because he sees the world as human versus other. Now that he's on one side of the spectrum.
Yeah. So here's something, Elliot, that we didn't talk about last chapter, which is that there was a little bit ago where Blake was offered the choice to sit in a throne and it would kind of be a big sacrifice, but he would save a lot of people. And now Rose sitting in this throne is kind of her final act of like, yes, we've won. Is there anything there? I was trying to think about whether there's any like interesting theming there that we could pull out, but I can't pull out anything beyond the fact that they both involve chairs.
That's interesting. I hadn't thought of that. I mean, they're obviously very different situations. Before I realized you were talking about Blake's job offer from the Abyss, my first thought for some reason was when people were asking Blake if he was going to be the Lord of Toronto right. after he beat Conquest.
Yeah.
And like it got me through this thing, like Blake has never wanted to do that, whereas I think Rose was always built to be a bit of a ruler. Maybe not built to, but she obviously since she got infected by Conquest.
And it just kind of fits her. Like she definitely has this kind of regal air, I suppose.
Well, and like her whole thing, right, was she's built to last and to kind of outlast everyone and sit there. And so, of course, the way she can do that powerfully is like from a throne.
Yeah, totally.
So it might just be highlighting sort of the difference between these two. Blake is someone who can't sit somewhere and lord over everyone, whereas Rose absolutely can
and wants to
and does.
Yeah, true. Fair enough. So, of course, the real hero of this chapter, now that Blake is basically unable to do anything, reduced to just an arm at this point, the real hero of this chapter is Bristles, who's the best, and I'm pretty sure is going to be the protagonist of Pact 2, because who else is worthy?
Yeah, Bristles fucking kicks ass in this chapter. And I mean, you already sort of compared him to Blake as a joke, but I'm actually going to do that a few times today. And I want to open with this one quote as Blake watches Bristles sort of tackle the barber for the first time. And Blake says, "The barber's attempts to beat, batter, and wrestle with the boogeyman were proving largely ineffective. Bristles was a sponge for abuse."
Takes one to know one. Huh?
Yeah, I mean, that's the. I was like, well, shit, that means a lot coming from Blake.
Yeah.
And I mean, as well, like that. I mean, that sort of fighting style is the only reason any of them are still here. Like that's Blake in a nutshell. Is Blake has just copped so much abuse, half of it self-inflicted in order to move things along. And it's just like, that's just so the situation right here is you have this big immortal demon and there's just this little boogeyman that just takes all the shit and keeps fighting. And here we are. Like, I think Bristles and Blake have a lot in common.
Yeah, true. Maybe that's why he connects with the others so much, is because they're like Bristles. They're just there to take a punishment.
Sure.
I've been thinking about these lawyers, putting Mrs. Lewis aside for a second, especially kind of thinking about the chauffeur and the possessed lawyer, who we later learn is called Christopher, which is great. The thing that strikes me about them is they actually aren't that intimidating. Like, Mrs. Lewis is an intimidating threat, but the chauffeur and the possessed lawyer, they're basically the same trick over and over again. And I don't think that that's a fault of the writing. I think that's a fault of these two characters who are just shit at doing anything creative, which is really what defines the strength of practitioners like Blake or Rose, where they're able to kind of pull tricks out of their asses. And these two are so often just doing the same thing. And it makes me think, like, actually getting to know these guys, seeing them more often, they're actually not that intimidating. The real power of the lawyers comes from the strength of their connections with demons and the fact that they've got enough clout from being around for so long. But really, the downside of that is they're really very one note.
Yeah, or, you know, the other side of it is this might be why these two are sort of the grunts and you've got someone like Miss Lewis on top. Because, so we're pretty certain the chauffeur is the guy, the point of view from Interlude 15 at this point, right? Like I've seen some discussions around that, and it seems quite likely. And I mean, that lines up with your thesis that a lot of the people who end up working for the lawyers are just big dumb, because that guy was pretty dumb.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't know. I mean, you know, I think the sorts of people who end up with the lawyers at the start, you're right, are probably not the most creative or the most forward thinking. So, like, yeah, I reckon there's something to that.
Yeah, maybe it is just my bias of, like, actually Mrs. Lewis is more of a character and more intimidating because she's smarter, and that's kind of why it seems like the lower tier grunts just aren't that intimidating.
Yeah, well, and she's I mean, I think the implication was she's like thousands of years old, not even just centuries.
Yeah.
So she's had time to increase her repertoire a bit. Even if she's a slow learner, she's probably gotten pretty clever by this point.
Yeah, definitely. So the fight rages on. Barbie attempts to use the pipes to control Bristles here, but Bristles is basically too great to fall for these shenanigans, so he can't.
Yeah, I don't know if we actually talked about this last episode, because I got up talking about like how I got caught up talking about how I kind of wanted that link between Bristles and Faisal to be more concrete, and like obviously, yeah, it was always kind of weird that Rose summoned a dog to like a fight with Johanna's in brackets involved.
Yeah, in egg quotes, Johanna's.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, obviously it works here because we get this kind of reveal about why that was worth doing. But yeah, I think last chapter we forgot to call out that you're just kind of like, why are you bringing a dog?
Yeah, but when we find out that actually Bristles isn't a dog, technically, it's so great. Like, it's such a big brained play by Rose. She summons the exact perfect other to just keep Barbie slightly on the back foot, which of course, buying a few seconds in these fights when you know that they're about to do a gamble that you've already planned for and isn't going to work. It's such a powerful moment, and it's such a mentally and theatrically devastating moment for Rose to just be like, oh, you're going to try that, are you? And it just doesn't work. It's so great.
Yeah, like, it kind of made me think, this is a bit of a Blake move, right? Like, that Blake instincts, like, she didn't explain this to anyone. I don't know, maybe she thought it through more in her head.
Well, who would she explain it to?
Yeah, that's fair. But it felt like one of those, like, Blake instinct moves, like pulling the dog that you think won't count as a dog. That's one of those silly risks Blake would tend to take. So I think all those donations to Rose are starting to show themselves.
Yeah.
But like to go back to my whole like Bristles is Blake type metaphor. I mean, obviously, like the whole thing that happens here is Bristles has been too changed by the Abyss to be controlled by the Barber or to be anticipated by the Barber. And I mean, that's kind of Blake, right? Like on a high level, Blake is someone who I think the Barber thought they had clocked. Like the Barber assumed they knew what Blake was going to do, and somehow Blake managed to tip the scales because he was a bit different to what the Barber expected. So it's starting. It's another connection and starting to show this whole thing where these little bits of change are just too strong for the demon to overcome.
Yeah, another point that means that Bristles should be the protagonist of Pact 2 because he's so similar to the protagonist of Pact 1.
Sure.
I like it. I like that, Elliot. As the person who's read this story before, I don't get to make a lot of speculations. This is my one speculation. Bristles for protagonist of Pact 2. Mark it down. I'm calling my shot now.
Okay.
I mean, this is assuming that Pact 2 even ever happens. So, look, I'll admit it's a long shot, but goddamn, I'm staking my claim on it. If it pans out, I will be hailed as the new Alistair.
Look, I don't think many of my predictions were surefire things, especially if you look at how many I got right. So
yeah,
I mean, it's on brand for the podcast.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Actually, while we're talking about Bristles, because of course that's what this podcast is just going to turn into now. Can we talk about the fact that Bristles was originally a human? I mean, like supposedly, and that he was treated like a dog so much that he turned into a dog, because that's so fucked up, and I absolutely love it. And it's good to know that even in what is the penultimate chapter of this story, Wildbow is still coming up with new ways to horrify us.
Yeah, well, I mean that's certainly something that's thrown out there as a possibility. I kind of like that it's left ambiguous because you know that's somehow more horrifying. This is one of those situations where I think the unknown is more terrifying because you're like, so wait, is it a dog that became more human? Yeah. Is it a human that became more dog? I don't know which is more upsetting. They both are. And again, Blake and Bristles. I wonder if this is. I mean, okay, so Blake is a hand in this chapter, right? And so assuming he manages to make it through next chapter, he can't become a human again. He just gave that up. So is this the sort of thing that's going to happen to him? Is Rose going to like combine him with some Abyss energy or something and turn him into a bird version of Bristles, hopefully a little bit less horrifying. Because I kind of want it to be a somewhat happy ending, but like, is Blake going to become a bird boogeyman? Oh wait, I don't know.
With the hyena sticking out of him. Would it be a happy ending though if he turns into a version of Bristles?
I mean, depends how Bristles. Like...
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I'm hoping Rose could cut a deal with the Abyss and be like, hey, look, just ease off on the whole misery part and just give him some form. That's that,
Fair enough.
We just fed you a whole big domain. Like,
yeah, basically a whole town. Let's be honest.
yeah, exactly.
So at this point, Rose points out all the ways that this domain is no longer Johannes's and bids the Abyss to swallow it up. And Mrs. Lewis kind of counters this by pointing out ways that this place is still tied to Jacob's Bell.
Yeah, which, like, I don't really get that as a defense, because that seems like a 2 birds, 1 stone situation. Weren't we already trying to get rid of Jacob's Bell?
Yeah, take Jacob's Bell too. That works for us.
Yeah.
No.
But no, like this bit's so cool. Like, so much of this story has been all the theatrics and all that, and it's laid on so thick here. It's great. Like, Rose's speeches sort of cut into this chapter are all so powerful and fantastic. Like, I loved it.
Yes, So this whole kind of final showdown, I've really been enjoying. And it's kind of, this bit here has really crystallized why I enjoy it so much, is because they're having this like intellectual debate, basically, while they're also throwing monsters and swords and shit at each other. And it's like the funnest kind of fight where it's both this physical scramble, but also this incredibly intellectual debate. And I've figured out exactly what it's analogous to. It's analogous to the Game of Kings, which is, of course, chess boxing. Have you seen chess boxing before, Elliot?
Yeah. So that's the one where it's like they do like a round of boxing and then they have to go and do a couple of moves of chess.
Yeah. And then they kind of alternate back and forth, and basically it deteriorates into people who've gotten more and more beat up in a boxing ring, having to try and like focus on playing chess while their adrenaline is flipping out on them. And that's basically what this is. And as chess boxing is a beautiful game, this is such a beautiful way for a conflict to evolve. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, and I mean, that, like, we've obviously talked about this a lot, but that's what's so great about Pact is this mixture of the power of the words means that we get to have one or the other, or in this case, like constantly flip between the two. Like this chapter is such a yo-yo of, oh, things are bad. No, wait, they're great. No, oh no, they're bad again. Oh, they're great. Like I was just on the edge of my seat for the entire chapter. Because you're right. We're yo-yoing not just between the sides, but that yo-yoing is happening because we will switch from like words to action, back to words to action. It's so great.
Yeah. It's really fun. I love it. It's so good. So then there's this bit where Buttsack, who actually now is pointed out to us, is the trash knight, which is great. Which is a great reveal, because I don't think we knew that beforehand. He was. But of course it's Buttsack. Buttsack the trash knight basically continues to refuse to fight until Mags promises him tons and tons of porn.
I mean, yeah, this is fucking hilarious. We were just talking about how something it's a bit unique to Pact is the power that words have in these things. So these sorts of speeches, like in universe, are powerful, and that makes them kind of feel more important to me as I'm reading. And using that in the middle of all this shit going on to have a powerful moment of a goblin getting promised lots of porn, lots of weird as shit porn. It's so good. And like, Buttsack, you earned it. You go get yourself your weird as shit porn. Well, I don't want to use the word hero, but he did good.
You can. Yeah, no, he does great. Go Buttsack. Okay, wait. Amend previous statement. Buttsack and Bristles, they're going to be the two main. It's going to be a kind of ensemble cast of Buttsack and Bristles as the main characters of Pact 2.
Well, it turns out Bristles is a vestige of Buttsack. It's a Blake and Rose situation.
Yeah. They used to be one really fucked up thing before Barbie cut them in half. And there was too much fucked up shit left over, so they both had to have some. Anyway, so Rose basically wins the intellectual side of the conflict here. She's able to dismantle Mrs. Lewis's points in a way that Mrs. Lewis can't really rebut. And the Abyss starts to claim the domain.
Woo! Let's go Abyss, and unambiguously good force.
Yeah,
this whole story.
The Abyss is
go to the Abyss.
Yeah, it's definitely on side, which is great. And let's not question it any further. So yeah, Rose has won the intellectual battle, but of course the physical battle is still ongoing. Chess boxing. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I love this move she has here. Like, I just got to single it out, the bit where I think it's the chauffeur. This is where he summons two like fairly powerful demons.
Yeah.
And Rose just kind of stands up and swipes them away.
Yeah.
Using like all the fucking power she's built up. It's so powerful. Like there's fucking glows going around and shit. Yeah. It's great.
She gives them the old swipe left and off they go. But yeah, so, and of course from this bit, we start to see Blake actually starting to come back into the action. But of course, he's just a hand at this point. So all he can kind of do is desperately crawl his way towards where things are going on. Not even crawl, kind of like do the worm at the action in the hope that he'll kind of get towards it. And it's so weird. And it's this weird payoff of like, he's desperately trying to do anything, even though the fact that he's just a disembodied arm, like if I was a disembodied arm, I'd be kind of like, all right, I've done my bit. Let's sit back.
Yeah, I mean, that's essentially it, right? Blake has had all of the ability to do anything taken from him.
Yes, which is basically all that he is the ability to keep doing shit.
He doesn't let that stop him from doing anything. He's like, he doesn't let the minor inconvenience of not being able to do anything stop him from being able to do anything.
Yeah.
He crawls meticulously through the chapter. And like, we already touched on this. For half the chapter, Blake is just an observer while he's bound. Then he becomes unbound, and he spends the whole rest of the chapter slowly crawling to the point where he can do his one thing.
Yeah.
And so the second half, it's like the pressure ratchets up because Blake is still, in effect, an observer. But every couple of paragraphs, we quickly cut to Blake mentioning where he's slowly crawling.
Yeah.
And it just adds this like, oh God, is he going to get caught? Or like, is he going to get to do the thing? It's like a great way to ramp up the pressure while still kind of having Blake just be an observer.
Yeah, and it seems pretty obvious to me that at any point, Mrs. Lewis, for example, I should stop calling her Mrs. Lewis. Miss Lewis can just step on that arm and that would be it for Blake, but he's still so desperately trying to do something. It's heroic. It really is.
Oh, it's so Blake.
Yeah. So Barbatorem eventually wins the fights against these mixed others that he's been battling. And starts to move towards Rose to end this fight once and for all. And she has no allies remaining, so it looks like it's game over for Rose Thorburn.
Yeah, I mean, this is sort of the really chaotic part of the brawl. Everyone starts to sort of come together, and it's just there's bits and pieces flying everywhere. There's one note that we get here about how like Peter is on his back, and he's just kind of bleeding from a big injury in his back.
Yeah,
and that reminded me. Because I was going to make a comment about how, when he gets up later, like that's pretty tough of him, like good showing.
Mm.
And then I remembered, I think I said that in Arc 11 when he got impaled by a doorknob in his back. Like he got like just next to his shoulder blade, he got impaled by a whole doorknob stuck into him, and he sort of kept going. And I was like, that's like less than 24 hours ago. It could be the same wound that just got reopened. Like this whole story has happened in such a short amount of time. That like Peter's got a big injury now on his back, and it could just be the one he got less than a day ago, aka half the bloody story ago.
Yeah, true. Yeah. The fact that these Thorburns are just sponges for punishment is, I mean, it's great, right? Like, and let's be honest, they kind of deserve it sometimes, especially Peter.
It's interesting though. Yeah, you're right, because both the Thorburn men that we have here are absolute gluttons for punishment. Maybe Bristles is a Thorburn.
That's a good explanation. I like that.
Yeah, he's that's where Charles?
Yeah, the one who was the baby.
Yeah. Bristles is Charles.
Yeah.
That's my new
headcanon.
Yeah, my new tinfoil theory.
So as Barbie is moving towards Rose, she kind of convinces him to use his own voice. And he does, and it's his own like Barbatorem husky crazy voice. And it's weird, right? Like, it's this moment of he's finally given up on this ruse, which, let's be honest, never really did much except for tricking some shitty spirits. Yeah, it's like things are more or less decided, but it is a bit of, it feels like that moment of the villain finally letting himself monologue a little bit.
Yeah, there's a sense of finality to it. Like, there's no need for him to pretend anymore. So it's kind of like, regardless of which way it goes, things are over at this point. He doesn't even need to pretend for anyone that he's got bits of Johannes in him.
Yeah.
It definitely puts a sense of finality into what's happening in this conversation.
Yeah, definitely. Of course, I lied before. Rose does have one ally left. Peter has gotten up from his bloody back floor spot and has snuck over and is sneakily working on freeing Faisal. And everyone kind of suddenly notices him and he realizes, and Barbie just quickly goes over to try and murder him real quick.
Peter has been such a fucking hero this arc.
Yeah.
I think it's been commented a couple of times throughout the arc, but Rose really made a good call being Peter. Holy shit.
Yeah, so I guess that means Pact 2 has to have 3 protagonists, which is starting to get a bit crowded, I'll be honest. I'm sure it'll work out, though. There's this moment where Paige screams at Peter to get down, and of course he doesn't. Barbatorem has just thrown his sickle at Peter, and Peter's response isn't to just, listen to what his twin is doing, even though they're clearly on the same side here. It's to be like, let me double-check that first, which almost means he gets fucking stabbed by this thrown scythe. Yeah, I love it. It's great. Of course he wouldn't listen to Paige.
Yeah, it's that icing on the cake, right? Of
yes.
this moment, because it could have just been that Peter got down, and that would have been fine.
Would have been fine.
It still would have set up the stuff that happens next. But there's that extra detail of Peter's not going to listen to Paige. I mean, we know this. And I'm kind of glad that it doesn't it'd be a bit weird at this point to learn that Peter and Paige were barbered. I do just kind of love them as an incredibly toxic, natural set of twins. I think it so perfectly suits sort of the natural humanness of so much of what this story has been setting up. I love them even more as just people who can't get along.
Yeah, totally. It's great. It's so good. That dynamic is really funny. It just, I just wish we had, we're getting to the end of the story, and I know that we're not going to get. Eventually, we're gonna have to say goodbye to these characters, and I just want more time with them,
Yeah.
I want this Cine DA to last forever.
It's crazy that it's been 1,000,000 words and it doesn't feel like enough.
Yeah. So and the worst part is every time we say goodbye to a character in what would normally be a temporary circumstance, we know it's probably the final goodbye to them, right? Like at this point, Bristles gets kicked over the edge, and I know we're not going to see Bristles again, and it just makes me so sad.
Yeah, but we also know, he's a boogeyman. He didn't actually get barbered. He'll live on in the abyss.
Yeah, which is obviously, as we said before, is a perfect place, since everyone there is going to be eternally happy.
Well, I mean, I guess that's a good point. Is it better if Bristles got killed, or if they're just reforming back in the abyss?
No, it's better if he's back in the abyss, I think.
I mean, it's been 5 years since this chapter happened, so Bristles is probably fine by now. Well, fine, you know what I mean.
Yeah, back to normal. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, back to
the abyss.
Dog normal, yeah. So Barbatorem is standing over Peter and is about to kill him when suddenly the most unexpected help shows up. Rose's call to the abyss from last chapter pays off. It all pays off because Defenestration Man is here and he does what he does. He defenestrates Barbatorem, just kind of yeets him over the side of the tower.
I mean, those who follow my live reads know I actually had to take a break after this happened. This is the greatest thing that's ever happened in the history of the world.
It's just so perfect. And it's so undignified of a way for Barbie to be defeated as well. It's like this guy who can only do one trick does his trick, and it's just pushing him out a window.
I love the delivery of it as well. Blake sets up this whole thing where it's and this boogeyman did the one trick he can do, defenestration. And then the next paragraph is just a single sentence, which is just a long pause lingered.
Yeah.
And that's just so perfect because you can just imagine Defenestration Man just pushes Barbatorem off the side of this building and everyone on the scene would just be sitting there the fuck?
Yeah, I didn't know that was a thing that could happen.
As you touched on, it's so perfect a way to finish this conflict because it's a small agent of change that's kind of been specialized and it's his representation of change beating like a boogeyman that should be way more powerful than it, which, a boogeyman defeating a demon that should be way more powerful than it, which eats shit Faisal. Yeah, I don't know. It's just such a good representation of why change can be so powerful.
Yeah, totally. It's great. How do you become a defenestration boogeyman, Elliot? Like, what was it that about some probably human person that that when they went into the abyss was kind of like, you know what the special flavor on this person is? They love defenestration, so let's make that their gimmick. Well, what is the backstory there?
I think the abyss is somewhat reactive to who the person is. So
yeah, so that person presumably had a thing for defenestration.
Yeah. I mean, they were in the tenements, right? Like, it does seem like an effective way to get rid of people and others.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like, I don't know. It's been too long since we did our segment on defenestration for me to comment too much on the larger imagery of it and go into the psychology of defenestration, man.
Yeah.
But, yeah, like, I just fucking love this so much.
Yeah, it's good, so isn't it? Yes, so Barbatorem has been defeat-nestrated, and so Peter can finish freeing Faisal. And as soon as Faisal appears, he, of course, is super helpful. Got him. He closes the gate to the demon dimension, which I guess is helpful, and then just fucks off.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of smaller things that sort of use themselves cleverly to beat something much more powerful, Faisal is not that, and he can just fuck off because fuck him.
And he does. Yeah, he just bails. And I think the reason that Peter has been introduced as a character is just so he can drop the sarcastic lines that other characters can't, because that would be too close to lying. And this is a perfect example. Faisal just fucks off, and of course Peter drops some sarcasm on him, because what else can you do when the angel just kind of ditches?
Yeah.
But it's not that bad, I guess, because Faisal leaving also is like completely undeniably ends the tie between Johannes and this place.
That's true. That's actually like a good reason for Faisal to have left, which probably means it was about his fourth or fifth concern in doing so.
Yeah.
Like, I refuse to believe that was his primary reason. He probably, it was like, oh, the battle's going to be over when I leave. I don't want to be a part of this. I'm not going to help these people. I've got work to get back to.
Yeah, so Faisal's two missions when he came to Jacob's Bell were stop Johannes and stop all this demonic shit, right?
Yep.
So really, we've been talking about how he's fucked up his missions pretty terribly, but I mean, it seems like everything's gone according to plan. Am I right? So actually, Faisal, you're a talented man, you're a genius, and I take it all back.
No, Faisal's that person who doesn't contribute to the group project, but then shows up at the end and puts his name on it.
Yeah, true.
In fact, no, he's the one who sends the group project backwards by accidentally deleting everyone else's work halfway through.
Yeah, but then is the one that ends up sending it to the teacher and so gets some of the credit.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, the battle is won here. The abyss begins to sink the tower, and Mrs. Lewis turns to escape when Blake lends a hand, as he's been aiming to do, and trips her up slightly, before everyone else can properly deal with her.
Yep, so that's Blake's thing. He managed to do a thing.
Yay, you did it.
And I mean, yeah, like, as we said, that was just, to round out the chapter of where Blake is incapable of doing anything. He didn't let that stop him. He still did a thing.
Yeah. And it wasn't a big thing. I mean, the battle was already over, but it does mean that they get to deliver some kind of punitive justice to Miss Lewis, which is fun.
Yeah, I consider trapping Miss Lewis here no small thing. I think that's going to be, that's important to me, that she doesn't get out of this.
Yeah, she shouldn't just get to walk away from all this fuckery that she's caused. I think caused is the right word here.
Even if she hasn't, karma in the actual sense, not the spirit sense.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a gargantuan effort put in by Blake for a minor result, but that minor result has some good consequences that make us feel good. It doesn't feel like a Pyrrhic victory. It feels like a proper, you actually get to, she doesn't escape. She doesn't get to get away from this. She's actually going to face some fucking consequences.
Yeah, but it's so Blake, I mean, this whole chapter was all this stuff Blake has set up, because Blake was so pivotal to everyone getting here to do this battle and to win it.
Yeah.
but he didn't actually get to participate in the final thing. And like that's sort of what happens here. He manages to trick Miss Lewis enough that everyone else can actually deal with her. And that's just where Blake is now. He's still, even though he can't do anything, he's still able to tip the scales a little bit so that everyone else can act. So that's what a hero Blake is.
Yeah. So yeah, Mrs. Lewis is caught, and Mags takes out some of her own frustration on her, smashing her in the face with the pipe gun. So that's fun.
Yeah, I do love, like, obviously Miss Lewis makes this callback. She's like, I didn't want to have to do this, and she starts to say Orneus. And I loved how instantly recognizable that was, and how I instantly understood what was happening, because that
was the first demon that we learned, right?
Yeah, but that's such an ancient callback. Like, I don't think the word Orneus has appeared in this story since like chapter 2.3.
Yeah.
So that's like a year ago, and it's still so memorable, which is really a testament to how well set up it was.
Yeah, totally.
A year ago that she just said Orn, and I was like, oh fuck, here we go. And then Mags's pipe gunning of the situation is also just perfect.
Yeah, the pipe gun actually makes me think that we haven't seen Andy or Ava in a long time. Since the rocket launcher blew up the lawyers, it's kind of like, oh, I hope they're okay. I mean, it seems like they've gotten the hell out of Dodge, which is undeniably the right move by them. But, I hope they're doing okay. I mean, it probably means we're not going to see them before the end of the story, which is, I don't know, it's sad. Well, we're at the point where it's just sad to not see all these characters anymore.
They were at the church, right? I mean, at least Eva was. I'm sure they both were. Because remember, there was the insanity demon and it didn't work on Eva because she was already there.
True. That was a good way for us to say goodbye to Eva, was her beating the shit out of a demon with her bare fucking hands and a few knives.
Yeah, but no, you're right. I kind of apply that same sadness to everyone that we had to leave in the church, because I don't know if we're going to get a chance to see much at all of them in the next chapter, or 2 chapters, really.
Yeah.
Except for Isadora, who we know carked it, how's everyone else doing?
We'll see. Or will we? I don't know. But yeah, this is where this chapter ends, and we've got the lawyers defeated, Barbie defenestrated, and Blake amputated. So what is next chapter going to be about?
I mean, okay, so there's all this imagery of the skies and the firmament, and it's all red and black and orange, and it's now all crumbling, and they're on top of a tower that's crumbling, and they're going to have to run back down the stairs. It's just the end of Ocarina of Time, right?
Mm-hmm. So I thought that too, of course.
That's pretty much exactly how I've been picturing this tower ever since this thought came to me. And it's kind of like, now they're going to have to climb down the tower, and I guess if that holds, Barbatorem's going to be down there to present another little challenge. But they'll skip over him probably, and then they'll save Green Eyes because she's fine, and she's just out the back having a sleep.
You don't think we've seen the last of Green Eyes for this story, Elliot?
I very, very much hope not. I mean, they've got to get out, right? Like, the next chapter, Ocarina of Time comparisons aside, they're going to have to escape before this place gets swallowed by the Abyss, presumably, because that's what Rose just started, the process of. So, they can't leave Green Eyes behind. Oh, I suppose they can. She'll be fine in the Abyss until they summon her, but they shouldn't leave her behind if they can help it.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, well, shit. I mean, that's that, right? 1 down, 2 to go? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, for the final time, it's time to say goodbye to one of my favourite characters from this podcast, which is the comment dive bonus bit, which has been a great friend to us. Diving back into the comments, we'll say goodbye to all of these great users that we've been seeing leaving comments 5 years in the past. We've pulled out comments of what people were saying when this chapter came up 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. I mean, this is not really related to the comment I pulled out, but of course, people don't know that the chapters, that the story's about to end. So there are a few people being like, oh man, I wonder if this thing's going to happen next or this thing. And I'm just kind of like, oh yeah, they don't know that it's about to be over.
Yeah, I think there were some comments right at the top of some Arc 15 chapters or something, sort of, where Wildbow said, the end was approaching and it was only an arc or so left. But when it's happening live, it was like, well, I don't know if this is the last one of the arc, if there's going to be 5 more.
Yeah.
So you don't know how much you've got to work with. Yeah. It's a good
just
point.
It's interesting to read comments with that in mind of what would people have thought when this was first coming out?
Yeah, because my understanding of what's happening is undoubtedly being shaped by the fact that I know there's one more chapter and then an epilogue.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. So I put out a comment by a user called, let me check my notes, Wildbow. Well, the initial comment was by Sir Fuente, who basically pointed out that we get a name for this lawyer here. Christopher, the possessed lawyer, is referred to by name. And Sir Fuente just called out that was a bit weird. And Wildbow's comment, which I thought was great, was, lawyers lose their identities. Demons don't. Which obviously just means the name of this demon that's possessing him is Christopher, which is a really weird... it's a really weird name for a demon. It's really strange. But I also just like it. Like, it's just a fun little reveal that Christopher was actually the demon's name all along, which indicates to me that this possessed lawyer is actually much more demon than he is lawyer at this point.
Yeah, especially I went and looked up the meaning of the name Christopher, and it means bearer of Christ.
What does that mean?
I mean, yeah, well, maybe Christopher is the new name of the lawyer, and the demon's name is Christ.
Interesting.
No, like I don't know. I mean, it could be a thing where he'd already been taken over when they signed up or something, but because it was more demon than human, it didn't lose its identity in the same way. Like, kind of like if Barbatorem had been conscripted at this point, it might have still been called Barbatorem or Johannes. Anyway, it's definitely it's a fun little comment. Like, this is such a great sort of like what the fuck comment for Wildbow to throw into the section.
Yeah, it's a real Wildbowism, isn't it?
So I pulled out a comment by Great Wormgold, who people were talking about that moment between Maggie and Buttsack, like of course. And Great Wormgold points out that Maggie promised the porn in the form of flash drives, which means Buttsack will need a computer to be able to access the porn he's given, which is just such a hilarious image to me that I had to bring this comment up, because like I'm just imagining like Buttsack having a username and password for his PC.
Yeah, do you think he has like a laptop or something? Like, how does this work?
I mean, like, yeah, he does seem clever enough to try and use one, but just like the image of what Buttsack would do to a poor like Windows install is hilarious to me. The viruses he would accumulate very quickly.
Yeah, a goblin's computer must be the most abyssal hellhole of malicious software. Yep. All right. Well, goodbye, commenters. Thanks for joining us on this journey. It's been great hearing your thoughts from 5 years in the future or 5 years in the past, depending on your frame of reference. But that's the end of our discussion on Judgment 16.2. Thanks for joining us, folks. Remember, we are running our final discussion question, and we'll be talking about the answers to that next week. That discussion question is, what does Pact mean to you? You can leave your answers to that in our discussion thread, which will be in the show notes down below. We've already got a lot of really soulful answers, and I'm excited to hear some more.
Awesome. I also, if you just wanted to answer that in the thread for last chapter, that might not be a bad idea, because this episode's thread is going to be doubling as our wider announcement that Wildbow's joining us.
Yes,
and,
true.
So we're hoping it'll get to be a busier thread than normal, and you might even have more luck answering the discussion question in the other thread. So it's up to you, but might get more visibility in the other thread despite it being older.
Well, or just leave it in this one early, and then people will comment on it, I guess, because they'll be there for the announcement. I don't know.
That's true.
Yeah. So in case you haven't heard yet, I've got a special surprise, which is our show's coming to an end, but we're doing a 24-hour live stream. I don't know if you've heard that or not, but we're doing a 24-hour live stream in about a week, so tune in for that. It's going to be a whole barrel of fun. A friend has loaned me her tarot card decks, and I'm learning how to do tarot card readings. I'll do your reading, Elliot, and I'll do some left-hand, right-hand readings for the audience as well that's there at the time. So it'll be a bunch of fun. You can find out, if Barbie splits you in half, what's the left hand going to be? What's the right hand going to be?
Yeah, I can't wait for that. Don't forget as well, like we posted in last chapter's stuff, that form where you can submit fan art and fan fiction.
Yes, true.
And while you're sort of in that frame of mind, remember that the We've Got Ward guys are running a, Pact and Parahumans in that order fan art contest on the theme of acceptance. And I think entries are due next Wednesday, March the 4th. So get drawing.
Yeah, talking about fan art, Can we talk about that great piece of Pact fan art that came out this week? I can't remember who authored it.
Aquila.
Yes.
We will be giving it plenty of attention.
Yes, true.
In
fair.
the live stream,
we'll be talking about it in the live stream. But man, it's so good. I absolutely love
good.
it. Check it out if you haven't already. It's got Buttsack in it, so of course it's perfect.
And if you want to vote on that fan art contest when it ends next week, to do that, you need to be a patron. So head on over to patreon.com/doofmedia. That's where you can get all the other perks as well, but, including that one where you get to vote. Yeah,
while you're on Patreon, why don't you head on over to Wildbow's Patreon as a thanks to him for coming on the show, I guess. That's patreon.com/Wildbow. You can support him in all the great work he does. I mean, obviously, we're getting to the end of Pact, and I don't think it's a secret to say that this story is so great. And the only reason Wildbow can write great stories like this is because he has patrons that support him. So do that.
Yes. And so apart from that, we'll see everyone on Tuesday, the 3rd of March, for Judgment 1613. Because, leap years. There's a leap year day this year, but there wasn't 5 years ago. If you know what leap years are, you'll understand why. But so we'll be...
Explain it, Elliot, in more detail.
So yeah, we'll be a day later for our 2 episodes next week. Well, episode and a live stream. So we'll see you all on Tuesday.
The final proper episode. Oh, it's daunting. We'll see you all then.
Bye.